Hello and welcome all back to Actual Play Swords Without Master Speedruns. Here's game number 2. I'm super excited about the story we're going to tell today because last time was fantastic. So hooray for this. I'm Sean. I use he/him pronouns, and I did not know how fun hosting was going to be last time. I thought hosting might be kind of boring. I'd just be sitting there like watching everybody play, but I had a blast. So I'm looking forward to writing in motifs and watching all of you rad folks do cool things. New to our show is Shell Khan. Welcome, and tell us all about yourself and how you're doing. Shell?
Hi, I'm Shell, she, her pronouns. And yeah, I'm really pumped. I am a big sword and sorcery nerd, and this is a great game. I've had the chance to play it a little bit with Epi at convention, so getting a chance to get in on Sunday morning swords feels really good.
Nice. How about you, Misha? What's up with you?
Not much. I'm Misha B, also she, her pronouns. I have played it once. I always want to play Sunday morning swords, but I have 2 small kids, so it's always tricky to do Sunday mornings because they're up and awake. But they're going bowling today, so I get to play.
Nice.
So yeah.
I feel like there should be some version of like some game that incorporates children, like small children, cats, like various like other obligations that you have as like factors, like tokens in the game. You know, these are my eidolons. You know, these cats I have to herd. Hey, Josh, welcome back for since what, Thursday? What's up with you, man?
Hey, I'm Strash, he/him, and Sean. It's always great to game with you, and it's always great to game. I've actually played with everyone but Shell here, so it's gonna be that's gonna be a special treat for me. I'm excited about that. Yeah, a little bit sleepy because we have like a little bit of I refer to it as coast lag, but my love of sword and sorcery will get me through it. So. What about you, Epi?
I'm doing good. Little on the nervous side, despite having a tremendously successful first run, but that's good. That gives me energy. I'm looking forward to this one. I'm curious to see if anyone's going to attempt the ritual of scrying on this one, which I posted about on the Worlds Without Master blog. Yeah. How about you, Sean?
I think I skipped my turn and went in the beginning, and I already kind of talked about myself. So yeah, I use he/him pronouns, and I'm really excited to see what we do tonight. Epi, are you going to introduce new rules in game? Are you going to tell us about scrying and things like that, or will we have to have like scrubbed the archives?
Well, the scrying is not for us here. It's for people watching. It's rules that I wrote for people watching the game, where they get to write their own motifs as it goes along.
Nice.
Or their scrying threads, their aberrations.
Nice.
You can even do it with YouTube videos.
Yes, you can watch it later and do it. So,
and if you're interested in finding out about this, you should check out the Swords Without Master D+ community, which is where this is posted.
Yeah, nice. I will get a link for that soon. Cool. Well, with all those introductions done, I'm going to disappear now, folks. I love you all. I'm going to fade into the back so Epi can tell these rogues about Swords Without Master, and we'll get started. And here we go.
Excellent.
I'm gone.
Ooh, Sean has disappeared into the astral plane and left us alone. So we're going to have to make some rogues here, right? Both Shell and Misha. Well, first question for Strash. Are you playing Arahan Firehaired again, or?
I'd like to,
Okay.
But if we have 2 drastically different rogues in a drastically different land, I may have made a cricket warrior Eidolon. I may have found one, so see if Click Chick makes an appearance here.
For those who may not have seen the first speed run, Strash's rogue from the last episode made a new friend in battle with a cricket warrior. So a warrior who's a cricket, not a warrior who plays cricket.
Yes.
Does the cricket warrior play cricket?
That's a good question.
I guess we play to find out.
Yeah, exactly. So to make rogues in Swords of That Master, so I'll start off just saying what a rogue is. A rogue is the sort of sword and sorcery hero. I call them rogues not because they're necessarily thieves, although they may in fact be thieves, but because they are outside of society in some way. They're not part of the structure of society that says, here's your master and here's the people that serve. The rogues are just not part of that structure. They're free to do as they please, which makes them dangerous. It makes them very useful to other people. It makes them oftentimes very sexy. So they wander the world, taking from it what they want. Also, we say that you're heroes, but when we say heroes, we mean heroes in a classic sense, wherein they're able to do great deeds. They may not be the most moral characters in the world. So that's something you don't have to be an upstanding citizen to be a rogue here. So there's only a few phases or a few things you need to do to make a rogue. The first one we'll focus on here is the Eidolon, which is something of our world that reminds you of your rogue. And oftentimes this is just like an image, and because we play online a lot, this is usually an image we can share. But it may be a song that reminds you of it. It may be a drink or a food item. It could be anything of our world that reminds you of the rogue. So I don't know if people came with rogue ideas, so I can stop there and let you kind of come up with your Eidolon, or I can go on to the next little bit. How do people feel?
I've got one in mind.
All right.
Yeah, I can summon an Eidolon pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Pinterest boards are beautiful things.
Yes. And so one thing we'll do, just because we're, we'll provide a link for people who are watching to go to it, but we'd like to make sure that if it's like the work of a certain artist, we also let that artist, let people know where that artist is and send them in that direction.
In this case, mine's a still from I believe it's a movie.
Yeah.
It was, I want to say it was the, God, I can't remember the movie it was now.
Oh yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Let's see what I can figure out for you.
I'm trying to look it up as well. I put it in Twitch chat.
Is the actress?
Yeah. Oh, and actors and actresses totally count as Eidolons.
I am also pulling a shot from a movie. I'm just going to try and find a decent sized resolution.
The movie was Tut. That's what.
That's awesome.
The character was Sahad.
There we go. Just make sure that's, yep. So I'm choosing a movie from the shot from the Norse movie Skiggen's Dal.
Ooh,
it's spooky.
Nice. Excellent. So this all makes really great radio.
It's okay. We're linking things in chat, and so we're good. We'll put this in Roll20 too.
Yeah. So the next bit, now that we have our Eidolons, this is to anchor us into our character. The next bit is to name all that is deserving of a name. And first off, your rogue is deserving of a name. So go ahead and give your rogue a name, and also help us out with some pronouns. But also anything that's important to your rogue that you want to give a name to, do that as well. And that can be, sometimes rogues have signature weapons, so they have names for that. Sometimes they have mounts or animal companions of some sort that they like to bring along. Maybe their homeland they want to give a name to, or somebody that's important to them, or somebody that they're looking to kill. That often happens. The rule that follows this is that if it's named on your character sheet, on your rogue sheet there, then you're the one who has the final say about the ultimate fate of this. So if it's something important to you, I, as the overplayer, will definitely try and put it in danger, but I don't have the ability to say, kill something. You've got a pet dog that's very important to you. It's a little Chihuahua. I can't kill that Chihuahua. It is, I can certainly offer it up to you, and you can have the Chihuahua bravely sacrifice itself for the rest of or whatever you want to do with it. But that's the power of naming something.
All right.
And we should probably share Strash's, your Arahan Firehaired stuff as well.
I will grab it from the plus and I will link it in chat.
Nice. Bringing out all these characters here. And we are going to run with the assumption that you all know each other and have been traveling together for some reason. So we don't have to do awkward introductions. You can totally not like each other. That's fine. But you have a mutual goal at the beginning of this game.
All right. So we should put our info in the little bio and info block?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Just going to take a look at Arahan and take a look at how you did that.
I added your images, or I added your image, Shell, for your character, and I'll and the rest you can click on edit and change those things. And I'll switch this over to Roll20 so all of everyone watching can see too in just a sec. It'll look beautiful.
All right.
And I am desperately trying to fit all of this on my tiny little screen.
Always tricky. This is why I have multiple monitors.
Yes.
Just because of things like that.
Oh, I think it's time for the Leaf Mustard cameo.
Hello, Leaf.
Wait, I'm sure.
What happened to like the beast that was stalking Leaf?
It's around.
Okay.
It's
wandering.
Leaf's world is bigger than it looks. It really.
I saw the peril. I didn't see the resolution.
Yeah. Maybe they're friends. You never know.
That's what I'm rooting for. That's my canon.
Yes.
Head canon, as they call it.
All right. So while you're working with those, I'm going to splash up on Roll20 now that everybody can see it. All of your Eidolons.
Nice.
So this we may recall this one is Firehair, Arahan Firehaired. Here we have Phaedra. The images are also in Twitch chat, but in case you're watching this on YouTube, we'll link it there as well. But these are our Eidolons, and here is Losa. Is that the correct pronunciation? Yep. Okay, and there's Losa's Eidolon, which I just love this creepy dark image. All right, those have all been shared, and now Roll20 is up on Twitch.
Nice. So I can talk a little bit about the next step. People can still add names if they come to them. The next step is the Feats Heroic. And the way this works is we're going to be playing this game. We're going to roll dice, and those dice are going to tell us the tones that we're going to play in, the tones we're going to narrate our characters in. And those two tones are glum and jovial. We interpret those very broadly. Glum is anything that is, it can be anything that's sad, but it's also just anything that's either muted or cold or dark or I like to sometimes think of it as if the soundtrack, the movie's in a minor key at that point. So glum is that, and then jovial is the other side of it. It's more passionate, it's bright, it's hot, it's in a major key. And as we narrate, we just want to kind of hit that tone. We don't need to make all of our narration, if we roll glum, dark and quiet and gloomy. We just need to have like a moment that just says it. What the feats heroic are two ways your character can be in, a way your character can be in each of the tones. And the reason why we do this is that they're sword and sorcery characters. They don't have to be 3-dimensional, but they have to be 2-dimensional. Like we need both glum and jovial versions of your character to avoid the problem of just making just the moodiest of all moody characters. So what you want to do with the feat heroic is think about your character in a situation where their life is on the line, and think about one way they might react in the glum tone and one way they might react in the jovial tone. This doesn't have to be the way they always react. In fact, it's better if it's like a last resort kind of thing, because while we play the game, you're going to get a chance to ignore the dice and just go with one of these tones once during the game. So these are like last-ditch efforts to make things go your way, or last-ditch efforts to make them go drastically not your way, if that's the way you want to play it. Perfectly legitimate. Lots of sword and sorcery characters are just doomed from the start. Do you want to share your feats heroic, Strash?
Sure. So for Arhan Firehair, my 2 feats heroic are my jovial feat, which I didn't use, and my glum feat, which I also didn't use. So the jovial feat is Arahan dances through his enemies, grinning, sword flashing, and hair flickering in the light, as Roish roars unheard in his ear. For those of you that don't know, Roish is a giant lion bear beast thing that I killed in a temple once, and I wear its hide, and it talks to me in my ear. It's one of the things I've named.
It's so good.
And the other one is my glum feat heroic is Arahan pulls his cloak close and hugs the walls and shadows, slipping by eyes unseen.
Nice.
All right.
Oop. Get it. I don't know if you can hear the exciting things going on in the background here. There's
Furious typing as we.
Would it be helpful if I saw it aloud?
Yeah. Oh, please think out loud if you wish.
I think I would like Losa to be able to pull and push light and darkness.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
So.
Yeah.
That sounds so rad. I sometimes like playing the really awesome sword and sorcery characters that have like a tinge of magic around them. But I think the majority of my magic is the fact that I've got sweet hair and like a cool cloak that whispers secrets in my ears.
That's a good cloak.
Yeah.
That's all you need. Although I saw a picture of cosplayers. It was a couple. He was playing Doctor Strange and she was playing the cloak.
Oh.
So she had like a full-on red morph suit and the cloak, and she was just, she'd wrap herself around him and she'd dance with him.
That's amazing, Misha.
Wow.
That is awesome.
For those of you online that don't know, Doctor Strange is probably one of my favorite Marvel characters, so I'm a bit of a fanboy.
I thought you were going to explain Doctor Strange to those who don't know.
Hopefully, the multi-million-dollar Marvel movie handle that for me, and I could just, now I'm not just the weirdo that goes, "I like Doctor Strange."
Yeah.
People are like, "I like Wolverine," or like whatever.
Yesterday, I was attending a graduation where, for long stretches of it, I got to watch a wonderful field full of birds and insects. And no matter what I roll, that is going to be the eidolon for this adventure. We're going to start in a field full of birds and insects. So you better hope for jovial, is all I'm saying.
Because glum insects are glum.
Yeah. All right. How are we doing here? Oh, I'm not seeing any changes to the...
Sorry, I'm just...
Oh, no, that's all right. I'm just making sure. There.
Oh.
Making sure it wasn't like a technical thing on my side here.
Sorry, I just checked out Phaedra's name things. I saw that she has 2 curved daggers named Death and Dishonor. That's rad.
And the good news is, after this, we only have one more thing to do, which is give us some tricks. And I'm just going to kind of scan for what might be good ones.
Nebby, do you want to talk about what tricks are?
Sure. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. So tricks. Tricks are the sort of ability to break the rules of the game that you have. So as we play the game, there's going to be a lot of pretty strict rules about who gets to say what, when, and where, and how things pan out. And the tricks are going to be moments where you get to say, no, it's going to be this, and it's going to work this way, because that's what's important to my character. We have quite a few tricks, and we need to know more about the game in order to go over all of them. So what we'll do is we'll just stick to the ones that are the easiest to know right off the bat. Everyone should have a different trick. So I think, Strash, you still have the trick from last time, right?
I have the inevitable foe because, as those that watched last time may remember, my village of Rakahara was destroyed by the dread Zanrasar the Black, who's a terrible wizard. And so I have the Serpent Karad, servant of Zanrasar the Black, as my inevitable foe. But if somebody else has a great foe that they want to see appear in game, I'm okay with switching my trick.
So what inevitable foe means is that at any point in between phases in this game, Strash can go, this next phase is a perilous phase, and we are fighting the Serpent Karad.
And it's going to be giant snake combat, is all I'm saying.
And then once you use your trick, you cross it out, and you just have to get a new one before you play again. So the ones that we have available, I could talk about these a little bit. An easy one is the locus, which is just you write down a location that you want to, some wondrous place that you want to make sure we visit. And whenever we're between phases, you can say, no matter what, Epi, this next phase is going to take place at the Emerald Fire Fountains, or whatever you come up with. Let me see here. What do we got here? We got one that's called The Undenied. If you really enjoyed writing your feats heroic, you can write a third one in either one of the tones you want. And when you use that one, not only do you get to be in that tone, but the overtone switches to that. So you change everyone's tone by how passionate or how dispassionate you are, or however you want to interpret glum and jovial. Let's see here. We have the rolling through the list. Somebody should have laid out this game better. We have the canny cognition. This is something about your character that allows them to know something about the world that we don't. Either they have like vast knowledges, they're astrologers, or maybe they have like a very keen sense of smell. And what we do is between phases, you'll say, hey, Epi, this next one has to be a discovery phase, and I'm going to discover something through my nose, or whatever you want to use. We have adroit prowess. This is just something astounding that your rogue can do that you just want to show off. And when we're like, say maybe you have a rogue that is able to leap over entire castles. So you're going to be like, this next phase has to be a rogue's phase, and you must make a demand of me to show how far I can leap. Do any of those appeal to you, Shell and Misha?
I wouldn't mind the locus if that's okay.
Sure, go for it.
All right, I will take the locus.
I'm leaning towards the discovery one.
Yeah. So for the locus, you just have to write down what you want to write down about the place. For the discovery, you just have to let us know what this particular, like how you're able to know this stuff. Either, you've studied many ancient texts, or you just have really keen eyesight. You stole an eye from a hawk and swallowed it once.
I like that you separated those two clauses. You stole it from a hawk and swallowed it once.
Yes.
Hey, once is important. You had to keep it down. That was part of the rules.
But it just feels like, you stole your parents' whiskey and you sipped from it once, right?
All right, my locus is the glittering amethyst shores of the sea that steals the moon.
Oh, yes. Excellent.
Nice.
I think there's going to be a moment where you're like, I would like to use my locus, and we'll just immediately generate a motif.
It's optional. I'm doing my best to provide things.
It's awesome sword and sorcery material right there.
All right, let's see here. So I think what I'll do now, while we're still doing thinking, you feel free to keep adding to the characters while I do this, but I'm going to give the quick, short rundown of how this game works, so everyone's on pace. Let's see how I do this. All right, so I talked before about the tone. That's going to be important. If you look over on Roll20, we have these two dice. The purple die with the white pips, that's going to be our glum die, and the amber die with the purple pips, that's going to be our jovial die. When it's your turn, we just have the same pair of dice. We will go around and just kind of hand them back and forth to determine who's got control of the narration at that moment. It always starts with me. I'm the overplayer. I rule with an iron fist. That was 2 iron fists. I apologize. And what I'll do is I will roll at the beginning of every phase for an overtone. And this is the tone that everyone's in. The whole world is in it until you roll the dice and change your tone. I will then start the narration by explaining where you are, why you're there, what you're doing. This is complete railroad. I'm in charge here. I can't really tell you what you're thinking or feeling, but I can certainly tell you if you're feeling lousy. Like if you happen to be in a situation where you're sick or ill or have just gotten the crap beat out of you. But part of the challenge is going to be you taking your character and making it work with what I just already set up. Once I roll the overtone, I'll also tell you the phase that we're in. There are 3 different kinds of phases. There's the perilous phase where your lives are on the line and you're going to be fighting something that's right in your face. There's the discovery phase, where you're going to be telling us about the world, or either like, hey, I know this legend from the past, or you might be like, hey, I see a magic sword lying on the ground in front of us and I want to pick it up. Or we'll be in the rogues phase, which is sort of the workhorse of all the phases. The rogues phase is where we make demands of each other to see how awesome or how dramatically our rogues can engage with the world about them. Each of those phases has rules about how we interact and pass the dice, and they also have rules about how we end the phase. When we play, we'll go over them when we hit the phases so that we make sure that everyone is on the right page. As I said before, with the tone, we don't have to stay in that tone. We just have to hit the tone with our narration. So if you roll glum in the middle of a giant battle, you can explain, or you could describe all of these loud noises, but then describe your character standing perfectly still, awaiting a foe from across the field or something like that. It just, often it's helpful to start by describing in the opposite tone, and that way you can just really hit the point. As we roll the dice, you roll the highest die tells you the tone. If both the dice are 3 or less, you're going to roll a thread. And this is I should tell you about stymies first. Here we go. If they tie, because you're like, hey, Epi, what if they're both the highest? Then they tied, right? If they tie, that's a stymie. That means your character is thwarted from doing what they were attempting to do at that moment. You get to describe why that is and how they're thwarted. So it's not just that they're clumsy or something like that. You can absolutely describe something coming out of nowhere and surprising you or what have you. The tone of the overtone will flip at that point. So if we were glum, it becomes jovial. If we were jovial, it becomes glum. And you are in that new overtone. And whatever causes that flip in the tone is going to be an escalation in the story. My standby description of this is that everyone's glum, sad, sitting in a tavern and drinking, and then somebody bumps someone, and we've rolled a stymie, so we're flipping to jovial, and now a brawl has broken out. And then we roll another stymie, and we're flipping to glum, and somebody has pulled the dagger out, and now it's not a brawl anymore, it's deadly serious. And then, we could just keep escalating from there. Hopefully we don't have to, but sometimes that happens. Sometimes your characters run through a string of bad luck. All right, back to the threads. If you roll 3 or less on the dice, both dice are equal to 3 or less, you're going to get a thread. The 2 types of threads that this might be is a moral or a mystery. If the dice are tied, that means that, and 3 or less, that means you've rolled a mystery. It works just like a stymie, except whatever is thwarting you has to be supernatural or unknown in some way. And you can describe that. You can ask me for help. That's throughout the game. Anytime you're like, okay, I'm done doing my narration. Let's let the overplayer take over. That's perfectly legitimate. Anyways, something supernatural happens that thwarts your character. You're going to write a question about that in our thread, in our mystery thread. And if you rolled 3 or less and they're not ties, then you get a moral. And a moral is fun because a moral is something that a lesson that your character should learn. Probably won't. We'll find that out when we get to the end of the story. But you do something and you have an unintended consequence. The way that works is you're allowed to come up with what that unintended consequence is, but I have the final say in whether that has enough teeth, so I can kind of give it a little bit more oomph. And then once that happens, you're going to write a moral, which is some sort of lesson you should have learned from this event. But like I said, you don't necessarily have to learn it. We have one other kind of thread that doesn't come up when we roll. It comes up whenever we want it to, and this is the motif. With the motif, we're going to listen to each other, describing what our characters are doing, narrating what's happening. And when you hear something that just sounds very sword and sorcery, which we've obviously have already done several times while making these rogues, but you hear something and you're like, yes, that's it. Daggers named Death and Dishonor or what have you. You write it down under, well, in this case, we'll write it in the chat. We'll make sure it goes up under the motif. And under each motif, if you look on the Roll20 screen, there are 3 elements. They're going to be, as we describe these things and we write them down, we're going to write them down 3 elements to each. And once we fill up that first motif with all 3 elements, we go to the second motif. And the rule is we cannot finish that second motif until one of those elements echoes an earlier one. So at that point, we're going to try and pay attention to how we're narrating things and try to echo some of the things. The rules are you can write down anything anyone says that you like, except something that you yourself said. That's important. You can't be your own hero in this game. Well, I mean, yeah, you can be your own hero in this game, but you can't be your biggest fan. Well, anyways, the point is it has to be something someone else says. So in order to do these echoes, one of us has to be narrating in a way that echoes the early stuff, and somebody else has to go, ha, that's really sword and sorcery. Also, it echoes. Once we filled in the second motif, all 3 elements of the second motif, we move on to the third motif. Again, we can't finish that until something echoes one thing from either of the first 2. We only need 1 echo, and it can come from either of the first 2 motifs. It's not that like we have to echo twice or anything like that. And then once we've finished all 3 elements in the third motif, that's when we enter the end game. And this is where the speed run in speedrun or in the Swords Without Master speedrun comes from. Because we're going to be watching that motif, we're going to be filling it in at a pace that works for us, and we want to make sure that we fill it in at a fast enough pace that we finish the game on time. Once we're in the end game, we're not done quite yet. We're going to keep playing just like we have been, except now you want to try and reincorporate one of these threads that's on the table. You can reincorporate the lessons, or sorry, the morals by saying, hey, showing how your character learns the lesson or teaches the lesson to someone else, or how your character will never ever learn that lesson. You can reincorporate the mysteries by answering the question that you wrote, or advancing the question by coming up with another question. I don't understand where that light came from. And then who are these beings that keep casting this light into my face? It wasn't particularly sword and sorcery. We'll do better in a moment. And then finally, you reincorporate the motif by picking one of those motif threads and taking 2 elements on it and synthesizing them together for something new. So if it's a serpent-drenched altar and a field of fire, you might be like, and there's a fire-breathing serpent. Whew, all right, I got through it. And once 2 of the 3 of you reincorporate, we are done, and we hit stop on the stopwatch, and we say how well we did with this speed run. Whew, all right. I can go over the phases. How are we doing for time, Sean? Should we? Oh, Sean's muted.
Can't hear you.
Oh.
Okay, sorry. I was clicking on the wrong screen. Too many computers running all this jazz. We've got about 10 minutes. So I think if you want to do a quick breakdown of the phase, then
sure.
We'll take a break before we get started.
Sounds good. All right. So the perilous phase is the phase where you're in trouble, where you have a danger right in your face. At the beginning of every phase, when I roll the dice and I start introing the phase, I'm going to give you what's called a thunder. And I'll signify that by taking the dice on the board and hiding them. That way it's a subtle hint that this thing that I'm telling you about is some sort of distant threat that you may or may not have to deal with. And then in the perilous phase, in addition to a thunder, I'm going to give you what's called the storm, which is an immediate threat you must deal with right away. And the way we work with the perilous phase is that I'll start narrating this storm coming at you. And this is like a bunch of soldiers with their angry looking spears charging down a mountainside. And then I'll hand the dice on the screen, not physically, obviously, because we cross an entire continent here. But I will hand the dice to one of you. Anyone who doesn't have the dice is perfectly welcome to narrate what their character is doing, but the only thing their character can do is slip and struggle with this storm. They cannot overcome it, and they cannot succumb to it. So they could just kind of struggle with it, and certainly do narrate how you're struggling with it. And we will probably pause and ask, like, what are you doing while this is happening, so that we get a clear picture of what's happening. But the player with the dice is the one with the power to actually overcome or succumb to it. As I'm narrating, I'm just going to slowly or even swiftly escalate what's happening until the person with the dice wants me to stop talking. And that's your power. You roll the dice. The moment you want me to stop talking, I'll stop. And then you get to take over the narration, talking about how your rogue either overcomes or succumbs to this, depending on what you rolled and how you feel that should be interpreted. Once you're done narrating that, you get to decide if this phase ends, right? So you're the one who rolled the dice, then you say, that was great, we're done, we're out of here. I've wiped out the army, we don't need to deal with it anymore. Or you can say, no, I want to keep going because this thunder you gave about the mountain itself starting to shake. I want to find out what that's about, or whatever. If you decide to keep going, you hold on to those dice. I will start narrating again, and I will bring the storm, and I will again start escalating. You cannot roll the dice again until somebody else has, so you have to pass them off to someone else. But you could hold on to those dice to make it very uncomfortable for the rest of us. That's your prerogative. You're allowed to do that. Once you pass them off, that player then holds on to the dice and decides when to roll to interrupt me. That may be right away. Oftentimes that is like, quick, roll. Or it might be, I want more. I want to see more bad stuff come down on us. And we just keep going like that until the rogue player who rolled the dice decides that this phase is over. At that point, we end the phase and we can move on to another one. All right, so the discovery phase, I will again describe where we are, give you a thunder, and then I will hand the dice to one of you, and you will roll immediately. And in that tone, you will show us something about the world, something that your character is either just now discovering or remembering or knows through their experience. It's something through your rogue that is exposed to us, or like it's something, something that we learn through your rogue. So it's not like, hey, here's the thing about the world. It's, hey, here's the thing about the world that I know, or here's the thing about the world that I'm finding. You tell us whatever that is. You're allowed to come up with whatever. So it can be something that's really awesome for you, like a magic crown that allows you to command the elements, or it could be something really nasty, like the queen who owns that crown. It doesn't, it's up to you. But then you have to ask me a loaded question about that. So you could be like, why is it nobody's picked this crown up before? Or it can be, why is it that the queen is ignoring us? Whatever you want to do, you ask that of me, and I will tell you an answer, and that answer is something that your character knows. Unless we happen to have rolled a stymie, in which case this is all information that you should have known or should have found out or should have discovered and did not. And we as the audience know about it, and we get to go tee-hee while we watch our rogues stumble blindly into the mess that they're about to stumble into. In a discovery phase, I get to end it. So you ask me a loaded question, and then I can say, yep, we're good, we're done, and then we move on. Or I could say, keep going, in which case you pass the dice to another player, and then they roll and do the same thing. And the reason for this is that I'm looking for where the story is going next. I'm looking for like where you don't have to come up with something that takes us to the next place in the story. You just have to come up with whatever you want. But I'm going to sit there and wait until I hear something that makes me want to go, yep, that's what's happening. All right, finally, the rogues phase. The rogues phase, again, I roll for the overtone, I create a thunder, and then I hand the dice to one of you and I make a demand. Demands always start with, show us how you pull the ship out of the ocean, right? Or show us how you convince the guards that you weren't responsible for the fire. Whatever, I will ask that of one of you, hand you the dice. You will roll the dice immediately and then respond in that tone. making sure that if we have like a thread, like a moral or whatever, we deal with that too. Once you've responded, once you feel like you've narrated the answer to that, you can then hand the dice, or you pick up the dice, and at that point, any one of us can say, this phase is over. But if none of us say that this phase is over, then you make a demand of someone else. So you turn to one of the other rogue players and you say, show us how you put out that fire that we totally didn't start. Or you can hand the dice to me as the overplayer and ask me to show you something about the world or how the characters in the world are responding to this horrible fire that you've created. All right, those are the phases. I guess the last bit I want to just talk about is that we have, your character, your vision of your character is important, and we want to protect that. So I can't kill your characters outright. You have to, I can offer that up to you. I could be like, hey, this person's putting a sword right through your midsection. What are you doing about that? And you could be like, I'm ignoring them, or whatever you want to do. But if I offer that up to you, you can then say, oh, this is a great place for my character to die if you want that to happen. By the same token, if we're describing NPCs or characters elsewhere in the world behaving in a way towards your character that doesn't seem appropriate to you, if you're like, no, this is not how people would treat my character, absolutely speak up and let us know, and we will change how that works. Because that, we want your characters to be the sword and sorcery rogues that you envision. And unless the world supports that, that doesn't happen. And then I think finally we want to just kind of talk about safety. If something comes up that you're uncomfortable with, let us know. This is using, I guess, the X card. I don't know how to do the X card specifically on Roll20, but
generally people can do something like this.
Yeah, straight edge.
Or just that.
Yeah. And we'll stop and we will change where it's going from there so that we're not stumbling all over that. Any quick questions? No?
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, makes sense.
All right.
Awesome. Then we're set to take our break, and we'll come back after this. We'll come back after this and have our rogues adventures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we'll see y'all in a few minutes.